I feel a little bit hurt. I
You
feel
feel
a
a
little
little bit.
hurt that I'm not.
No, well, we could do a little.
Yeah.
Could do a little
No,
music in
no,
the
no.
background. No, we could do a little music in the
Yeah.
background. Could do a little
I
music in
mean,
the
everybody
background.
else is getting music and I get none. What can I
Yeah,
do?
wouldn't want a situation where you're feeling discriminated against.
Hey.
Okay. Note I have not put on anything controversial. It's only because I couldn't think of any soca tune that dealing up with flour, right?
No,
That's
no, no,
that's the only
no, no.
reason.
Then I wouldn't tell you to take off the music. So
Yeah, couldn't think of any soca tune I was dealing up with flour, but eventually I will find one. So
I'm sure you will.
good afternoon, CEO Mitchell. Is it okay if I call you Ian?
Please insist.
Right. So, good afternoon, Ian. And so, my audience is already on. This is Mr. Ian Mitchell. He is the CEO at NFM, National Flour Mills, and he agreed to give me about 10 minutes of his time this afternoon to answer some questions. So, CEO, let's just get directly into it. Do we import flour or do we import wheat here in Trinidad and Tobago? Because I want to be clear on what exactly NFM brings into the country.
Hmm. Right. So, Rhoda, we import wheat. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Wheat is, of course, the primary ingredient in the manufacturing of flour. And so we bring in wheat together with one or two other grain, which are used in the manufacturing of feed products.
Mm-hmm.
And we offload that wheat, store it in our silos, mill it, put it in some nice packaging, and put IDIS on the shelf for Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, good. So we bring in
Hmm.
wheat and we
Hmm.
mill the wheat here and we turn it into flour. We package it, we put it on the shelves here. Are we importing wheat from the Ukraine?
No. So what happens with wheat? And I've gotten this question quite a bit today and yesterday. How come the situation or the crisis is in Ukraine, but uh, I'm hearing that NFM does not import wheat from Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
yet, there's price issues and escalation in the
Well,
costs
I'm
of wheat
curious
and
about
so on.
that as well because when I found out that we
Right.
don't import from the Ukraine, we import from North America. Is that correct?
Right. So the US or Canada,
Mm-hmm.
right? North America. And but wheat is a commodity. So what happens is that you have all of these nations that produce wheat. Some of them produce enough to export. And so you have a group of nations that produce wheat for export, and they export wheat to all other countries, such as Trinidad and Tobago, where we are unable to grow wheat.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're really competing for a smaller quantity of wheat, and you are competing with everybody else who is trying to find that their share of that smaller supply.
So I just want to make sure my audience understands this. We buy from North America. We buy our wheat from North America. But because
Mhm.
Ukraine is no longer in a position to supply wheat to the persons that it would have normally been supplying wheat to, they are now purchasing their wheat from the same people we are purchasing our wheat from. Is that correct?
Right. So the competition globally now is focused on a smaller quantity,
So
overall
demand
quantity. And
has increased for the North
well,
American
supply.
wheat market.
That's right. That's right. So just like oil, and I think I was explaining to this earlier today as well, just like oil, when there was a crisis with the war in the Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
because they are big producers of oil, you found that the price of oil went sky high because it meant that the whole source of wheat was now affected. Similarly, with wheat, the same thing happens. And even though Russia is the largest exporter of wheat globally,
Mm-hmm.
all right. So you also have sanctions. So not just Ukraine where the wheat can't come out. You have Russia where there are now sanctions against Russia. And so it's not as easy for persons who would ordinarily buy from Russia to buy from Russia.
Right. So then it means the markets that you are accustomed to buying wheat from, they have raised their prices.
Right. So this is traded wheat again. As a commodity is traded on a commodities exchange in Chicago, and so it's not a matter of raising prices by one person or another person. The normal forces are applied on the market, and the supply outstripping demand sends the prices up. So what we've seen is uh, an increase in between the beginning of last year and now. We've seen periods where the price increased by as much as 140%.
But I would imagine, Ian, that when NFM is purchasing wheat, you're not purchasing wheat last week for this week. So you would probably
No,
be purchasing
no.
in bulk quantities way in advance. Am I correct?
Right, right. So we do 4 to 5 shipments of wheat per year, and you have to actually secure that shipment at least 3 months before you start putting things in place. You start securing the position, is what we say. So you make arrangements because grain comes by the boatload. So you have to put all of those logistic factors and so on in place and commit and buy your futures and so on. And then the vessel sails, it shows up on our dock, and we offload.
Okay, all right, good. So there wasn't the announcement yesterday about the increase in prices. And
Yes,
what I noticed based on the figures that you guys provided, wheat prices have gone up by about 49%, but NFM
yes,
is only doing an increase of 33%. Can you explain
right.
to me, as if I am a 6-year-old, how NFM is managing to do 33% when on the global market it's 49%? So that's 6% in there. Who's absorbing that, or how are you managing to not increase flour prices by the full 49%?
Right, so 2 factors. One, wheat accounts for just over 80% of our overall production cost for flour. So it therefore means we have another piece of the puzzle that is really other operating costs. So what we try to do is tighten as much as we can in the other areas. And fortunately for us, NFM is quite diverse. We have many different business lines. So we try to manage the overall business in such a way that it remains profitable. Our expectation is that things will soften at some point, and we will then be able to see the profits that we want to see. We really had to look at what the overall impact of a full 49% increase would be to the market, and we felt we should try to work as best as possible to keep that down and to only go with a 33% increase.
So bold and bold question. Is it that the state is absorbing that 6% at this point in
No, no,
time?
no. The state is not that. So I mean, NFM, even though NEL owns 51% of the shares of NFM, we operate like an independent entity. We are traded on the stock exchange. We don't depend on the state to bail us out. We have to do our thing inside here and keep the place running profitable.
Okay, all right, good. And that's useful to know. So, right, so nobody's absorbing it. Alternative flours, because this morning there was a lot of conversation, certainly on my Newsauce page, a lot of conversation about
Right,
alternative flours. We know that
right.
wheat flour, that you just said, it accounts for 80% of what you are doing.
Of the
Yes?
overall cost. That includes all costs,
Right.
yeah,
So
in
wheat
producing flour,
wheat
yes.
is the major thing that you are importing. Has NFM over the years at all given any consideration to alternative flours?
So we've done a lot of product development work looking at alternative types of flour. The challenge that you have to take into consideration is that, one, it's difficult to source that volume of, say, cassava. Cassava is the one everybody likes to talk about. Two, the cost. So we've been doing a lot of work, as I mentioned, in R&D, looking at cassava and so on. Cassava flour costs somewhere in the region of $30 to $35 per kg. Flour, even with the increases, is just under $9.50 per kg.
So the
So if you
alternatives are
wanted to make
way more
they
expensive, sorry, than
way
wheat.
more expensive.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 times as expensive or more.
Okay.
So it appears to be, I mean, and it's sexy, it's nice to talk about it, but when you really do the maths through it really, I don't know that there's anyone that could produce an alternative type of flour that is going to be more economical
You mean at this point in time?
at this point in time.
The reason I say that is wheat flour is as inexpensive as it is because it's grown in huge quantities. I don't know
Yes.
that there's any
Yeah.
country in the world that's growing cassava or oats or any of the other
Valid
alternative
point.
flours in large enough quantities. So maybe if at any point we
Maybe
ever
we'll
get
get
to,
there at some point.
maybe
I
we will
agree.
get there at some point in time. I hear
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Right. The next thing I wanted to ask Ian is your downstream products, because it's not just flour. There'll be downstream
Right.
products that NFM is producing. So how is this increase, this 16% increase rather, well, rather, let me not say this is 16% increase, the 33% increase, and of course there is that 16% gap in there between 33 and 49%.
Right.
How
Right.
how is that impacting on your downstream products?
Yeah, so flour goes into some of our what we refer to as our dry mixes. Um, and as you know, we do a number of other products like um, baking powder and so on. And we have not made any changes to the prices of those products, and we don't intend to at this time. We're looking very closely at dealing specifically with the issue. Most of those other products, flour is a smaller component, and so it's easier for us to absorb the increase in wheat, which goes into flour for those products.
So,
But flour is just flour.
right, at this
Yeah.
point in time, the downstream products you're thinking will remain fairly
We're
stable in
we're
price.
we are holding on those for now, and I mean, as things change, we may have to adjust, but for now, we feel that there's no need to increase prices in those
Okay.
lines of products.
Have you seen the memes that are circulating though, where people are saying they don't need baking powder anymore because flour already raised?
It will rise on its own. Yeah, that would not be good for our Lion baking powder brand. Yeah,
Or the
but
Polari mix,
yeah,
or the roti
or
mix.
the caloric mix. Yes, yes.
Okay. Last thing I want to talk about here, because I know you have meetings to run off to. At some point in time, because you alluded to this early on in the interview, the price of wheat is going to change because it's a commodity, right? When the price
Right.
changes and the price goes from skyrocketing to going back down, will the public feel the impact of a reduction as well?
Yeah, so that's our intention, and we made it abundantly clear that once the prices start to go back down, we will make the necessary adjustments. And we would do what we need to, of course, communicate and sensitize the population so that they can expect to see those price reductions on the supermarket shelf.
So, right. So, this is my final question. Because you put out a list today, I saw a list this morning. I don't know if it was put out today, but I saw it this morning, of
Yeah,
proposed prices. When
yes,
you indicate that those are your proposed prices for your flour products, does that translate to what the supermarkets, how they price the product, or is it just a suggested price for the supermarkets?
right. So we term it, and it's specifically referred to as a suggested retail price. So we can't tell you if you owned a little parlor or a large, let me not say a little parlor, a large supermarket product. We can't come in and tell you what price you should sell our product at. But what we do is we suggest a price that is reasonable given the type of product it is. So we see flour as a commodity, um, and it's a type of product that we expect a certain type of markup on. And so we are suggesting to retailers this is where we feel we should position this product. And by and large, most of them adhere to the suggested retail price.
Okay, all right. Well, Mr. Mitchell, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I know we pulled you out of a meeting and you're probably rushing into another meeting, but thanks for taking these questions. And of course, if there are any follow-up questions, we will reach out to you for clarification.
I really appreciate it. And thank you very much to you and your viewers.
Okay, not a problem at all. Have a good evening. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.